Coming up, how to topple a dictator without bloodshed.
For Serbian movement, nonviolence was a clear, conscious choice, not only because we thought it ethically matters, but because we knew it is going to work.
Canvas's Srdja Popovic discusses his past as a revolutionary leader, his role in the Arab Spring, and the future of nonviolence. It's just ahead on Global Ethics Forum.
Born and raised in the former Yugoslavia, Srdja Popovic learned the art of revolution the hard way. In the 1990s, he watched with horror as political elites drew his country into a succession of civil wars, bloodshed, and dictatorship. When Yugoslavia's self-professed democratic leaders failed to bring democracy, Popovic and a small circle of students took matters into their own hands. Together, they founded the youth movement Otpor. Like Gandhi, King, and other nonviolent revolutionaries before them, Otpor used nonviolence strategically to undermine the pillars of power supporting injustice. In the fall of 2000, Popovic and his colleagues helped to achieve the unthinkable. They forced the resignation of Slobodan Milosevic. So in 2004, Popovic and his colleagues co-founded Canvas, the Center for Applied Nonviolent Action and Strategies. As its executive director, Popovic is turning the art of revolution into a science. You're here as an activist, but in fact, you didn't start out that way. In your teens, you were actually studying to become a biologist, if I'm correct. So tell me, how does a biology student who, on the face of it, wouldn't seem to be particularly involved in politics, get into the business of bringing down a dictator?
Now, none of my students on political science departments will listen to me, but I'm a master of biology. I feel very strongly for fishing and outdoors, and which is why I enlisted and ended biology. But when you were a young man in a place like Serbia in the 90s, you really had only two choices. One, faced with a deteriorating situation, is to leave and find your luck somewhere else. And unfortunately, the world is full of clever Serbs. I see some of them here tonight. And they have very good jobs, they have very nice families, but unfortunately they're not coming back. Other choice was to stay back and say to Milosevic, no, you're not going to tear me away. And this is what most of my generation done. We decided to stay back and fight. So that was not the courage, that was lack of choice.
You decided to fight nonviolently, right? Given all the bloodshed of the Yugoslav wars, the NATO bombing, the years of sanctions, it almost seems ironic that you would turn to nonviolence. Explain that.
Well, it seems actually logic, after being exposed to so much violence and seeing so many ugly people around, running around with the guns, and seeing that this national ethnic cleansing all around the globe. Then seeing NATO bombs, out of which one almost killed my mom in what was proclaimed to be legitimate war goal, hitting the national TV of Serbia. She was in that building that day, not that night when the bomb hit. You really start avoiding violence. And for Serbian movement, nonviolence was a clear, conscious choice, not only because we thought it ethically matters, because we knew it is going to work. Nonviolent conflict, as we see it, is asymmetric form of warfare. You're actually waging war. Milosevic was very competent in the field of military, and struggling with him, but also whatsoever, struggling with people like Assad in a military arena would be like choosing to box with Tyson. The guy will come in, he will first eat your ears, then he's going to eat you. So this is not the choice for you. You pick the battlefield where you can, in fact, win. So you want to play chess with Tyson, and you want to play nonviolent struggle with Milosevic and Assads of this world.
And so you, of course, chose to co-found Otpor in 1998. That was almost a decade into Milosevic's rule, a decade after political parties had been formed, dozens of NGOs had been formed, an alliance had been formed all to oust Milosevic. What do you think distinguished Otpor from these organizations at the time?
First of all, it took Serbs 10 years to take out Milosevic. That means we are very stubborn people and slow learners. So if you say a Serb, the stove is very hot, he will still need to touch it. But we were learning by doing it, and we were doing it slowly but steadily. In 1992, my first student protest, I was a freshman year, started in Belgrade, and we were super excited to be on this cool place, occupying all of this lovely building, waving our hands like your Occupy Wall Street guys. And all the cool bands were there, all the rock bands were there, all the actors were there, but we were living in our small bubble of common sense. Outside, Milosevic was arming his tanks. This is where we learned that we need to build upon numbers, to talk to the middle ground in order to win. What Otpor particularly brought to this struggle is maybe three specific things. Every single movement thinks that this movement is super cool and, you know, we are all reinventing the history. But basically, Otpor was very well known for its a very huge commitment to nonviolence, but also to the huge commitment of being in and cool. So if you want these movements to be really successful, you want people feel good in this movement. Second, Otpor had a legendary branding and visual identity. The clenched fist, the symbol made by a young Serbian designer and my good friend Duda Petrovic, has been copied in 8 different conflicts throughout the globe. That's the power of the symbol. Third, we were relying very much on humor, and that was one of the specifics of this movement. You are melting the fear with humor, and this is a very important thing.
So at what point did you realize that the lessons you had learned in Serbia might extend beyond the confines in Serbia and might have global application?
Where there is a fantastic documentary made by American director Steve York, Bringing Down the Dictator. It guides you through the Serbian Revolution. Even more important, it has been seen by 25 million people in the world, translated into 18 different languages. So we often bumped into the people who know it. I was so thrilled to find Zimbabweans watching them and being inspired by the Serbian Revolution. Even Burmese monks who started the attempt of Saffron Revolution back there were watching this movie. Can you imagine the strange ways which bring the movie about the Serbian Revolution into the monastery in the jungles of Burma? This is how the activism spread. So people see this movie, they come to us, and what is really interesting, they are inspired with the model, but also with this idea that a small group of outsiders, like little hobbits, are the guys who are going to make this process. So we are not talking about elite-driven change. Popular nonviolent movements are the best way for the common people like you or me to really bring about the change. And normally, besides the activists in strange places, they are disappointed in their government, they're disappointed in their opposition, they think their labor unions don't work, they think their NGO sector is completely taken by the government. So what they do, they take the destiny into their own hands. And it's up to them to believe that it is possible. Once they see it was possible in Serbia, they get super excited.
So can you tell us a little bit about how this works? Do you reach out to activists? Do they come to you?
Well, they come to us thanks to the movie and our small booklet called Bringing Down the Dictator, but also the growing number of resources. I mean, in the last 2 or 3 years, there are so many phenomenal books. To mention a few, Small Acts of Resistance, the great book by a man who sits here, actually, John Jackson, and another friend of mine, telling all the beautiful stories about how activists throughout the globe do the small things to oppress against the oppressive regimes. Dictator's Learning Curve by Will Dobson, also ex-Carnegie guy from Washington, D.C. Join the Club, great book by Tina Rosenberg, explores how peer pressure can make this movement being really cool. So there are a huge number of resources. But what happens is that people get across some of these resources, they contact us, we never go uninvited, the movements contact us. And I mean, then we try to respond. You need to understand that we are a group of 7 people, 7 employees in a small office in Belgrade, and 12 trainers who work internationally, but they are not employed. We try to respond. Then we go, we meet with these people. Sometimes we go to the countries where this happens. Sometimes we get expelled from these countries. We got expelled from Belarus. We got expelled from Lebanon after Hariri's assassination. Sometimes we ask people to come across the border, and we need somehow to smuggle them and really meet them on a safe ground. But it's basically the same. You spend 5 days with these people. You explore their struggle. First of all, you tell them that there is absolutely no way the foreigners can tell you what to do. In order to be efficient, this revolution needs to be your own. So you need really to follow your own instinct and follow the things. And then you drive them through the history. I mean, you tell them the very important thing. What really matters in history are the consequences. This fantastic study by 2 young American scholars, you should invite these 2, Maria Stefan and Erika Chenovet. It's called Why Civil Resistance Work. They were examining 323 campaigns from 19,000 to 2006. And they understood that if you run the violent campaign, you have about 26% of chances to win. If you, however, run the non-violent campaign, you have 53% of chances to win. So by taking the firearms, people of Syria and Libya effectively cut their chances by half.
Your critics, of course, say that you are in the business of exporting revolution and regime change. I'm curious about your response to those accusations, and in particular, do you think that what Canvas does to intervene abroad raises any ethical questions, particularly as relates to the question of state sovereignty?
Well, I mean, first of all, we never tell people what to do. We just give them the toolbox. What they will do with the toolbox is completely for their own. And there was this very popular narrative. It was launched in Russia, basically, after the Orange Revolution of Roses in Georgia. And there is this, Chavez actually done a lot to advertise this. He appeared on the TV with this popular story of few Serbs being armed with a lot of knowledge and $1 million, and then you ship them in a country and boom, you have the revolution. Well, I would be the luckiest person in the world if this is how it is easy to bring a democracy. I would easily fundraise for a few $1 million and then go from country to country and make them free. But unfortunately, this doesn't work this way. Why is nonviolent revolution so different from the violent revolution when it comes to international intervention? Numbers. People will need to really feel something about the change in their country. Would you think it would be possible to take 1 million Egyptians and export them to Burma to do the revolution? They wouldn't care about the Burma. How of them wouldn't find the Burma on the map? So these revolutions are absolutely not exportable and importable. But when it comes to the foreign intervention, as somebody being exposed to the sanctions and bombing as a democratic activist, I must tell you, this thing doesn't work. Shotgun sanctions, which hit the population, easily gives dictator an easy way out to deal with the economy, to put the whole population into the gray zone, to find an excuse for the lousy situation. It's about these evil foreigners. They're all conspiracy against the Serbs. And then the foreign bombing, it just brings people around the dictator. When you look at the George W. Bush ratings, they were highest at the September the 12th. This is normal. When you look at the Milosevic rating, they were highest during the NATO bombing. If Bear is dancing in front of this door, we'll find a way to reach the consensus, get rid of Bear, and then argue on whatever we are. This is why foreign military intervention don't work. The same study, why civil resistance work, cuts 5 years after the change, and if the change is achieved through the violent means, you have about 4% of chances to end up in democracy. 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. If the change is achieved through the nonviolent struggle, you have about 42% of chances. So not only that the nonviolent struggle is twice more likely to succeed, but it is 10 times more likely to proceed democracy. Why? Again, let us back to what the nonviolent movements are. They're groups of common people. They stand for the values for the future. They win their victories by participating in a struggle. They become the shareholders of change, and then it's very difficult to take this change for them. Unlike that, when you look at the foreign military intervention, what happens? The cavalry comes in, they take the bad guy out, they hang him in the front on the TV cameras, and when they remove, what's there to be left? And what's there for the peoples to feel that they belong to this change?
Initially, at least, the Arab Spring was very much a narrative about the surprising success of nonviolent resistance. In 2012, however, that narrative changed. We witnessed the violence in Libya and Syria and the very slow pace of reform in Egypt. I'm curious, do you see what's happening across the Middle East as a repudiation of nonviolent resistance or as further justification thereof?
When you look at all of the struggles in the Middle East, and I'm talking about the nonviolent struggles, Tunisia and Egypt, it's very important to understand that the moment you achieve electoral democracy, M&Ms are not start falling from the sky. We need to understand that, however, the transition is a three-step process. So what is actually happening is that you have a phase one. This is how you mobilize people, how you achieve unity, how you build numbers, how you use communications, how you get rid of the bad guys. Then the phase two, which we too often oversee, is what happens once you shake this building. If the government is rolling on the street, it is very likely that the most organized groups will take over. Look at the Burma. The military step in to solve the situation and somehow stay in power for 25 years. SCAF in Egypt, they overtook and say, we will do the transition. Military is not the entity which can easily do the transition, and in fact, in history, never did. So what is very important to know is how to make this revolution happen, but also how you make the swift transition to the democratic government. Means you need to have a democratic government, or at least plan in charge. There are like 5 most common mistakes movement makes. First, they forget about the vision of tomorrow. Vision of tomorrow is not getting rid of Mubarak. Vision of tomorrow is having democratic and prosperous Egypt. Vision of tomorrow was not getting rid of Milosevic. Vision of tomorrow was having Serbia in peace with neighbors, economically prosperous, complete democracy, and relatively on the way to the EU. That was the pressure being put on the new government from the day one after the revolution. We were highly criticized that we were using the same toolbox against the new government when Milosevic left, but I actually think that was very healing for the new government because they are accountable and they understand the people and the numbers count. When you look at this, second big mistake is too often you lose the momentum. You have this powerful momentum, then you make the fireworks, you go home, and then instead of continuously changing the system, you leave other players to take the place. What in the world make you think that if only a small group of hobbits was capable to deal against the powers of Mordor, these other guys who are incapable to struggle against Mordor will sometimes efficiently govern your state without your help? They need your help. You need to stay tuned. Then, I mean, this is to come back to the fishery. Movements are like sharks. If movement stops, movement die. Shark must be swimming at all times in order to survive. So there is also third very common mistakes. Don't fall in love with your new elites too fast. New elites can find the shoes of old elites very, very comfortable. So keep them accountable. Last but not in least importance, maintain the unity. Unity is the foremost principle of success. And I know it's very difficult. I mean, the real problem is that when you have this boogeyman sitting on the top, he's a very strong unifying factor. But what when the boogeyman is not there anymore? You get rid of them. So, but this is, for some nations, specifically nations like Egypt or Serbia, you know, it's always easier to unify against something than for something. It's a very bizarre logic. But when you look at the Middle East, keep patient. We are talking about hundreds of millions of people moving from dictatorship to democracy. And we will see the end of this process. Call me an optimist, but the world was far more different animal back there in the 80s. Look at the Eastern Europe and look what Valenza started. Eastern Europe is now mostly consisted of democratic societies. Look at the South America, look what happened after Pinochet fell. South America is mostly consisted of now Balkans and North Africa opening. So we are looking at this, what some call fourth wave of democratization. I'm not a social scientist, but more and more small group of young people, mainly outsiders, are taking the show, and sometimes they do it with very good results.
So in addition to Canvas, there's another advantage that today's activists have that you and your colleagues at Otpor didn't have, and that's social media. Twitter and Facebook were kind of the symbol of the Arab Spring. To what extent do you think that credit is deserved, and are there potential drawbacks related to today's use of social media?
Well, social media brought a lot of things to the nonviolent arena. First, they make things faster and cheaper. I mean, imagine us making a rally back there 15 years ago. You need to print leaflets, posters, distribute them, knock on the doors, make radio commercial, takes time, people get arrested. Now you make the Facebook group, people know. Second, it puts a huge price tag on a state-sponsored violence. Since the big breakthrough of citizen journalism during Saffron Revolution, where people were using their small handy cameras to export images from Burma, now whenever you see the demonstration, everybody's taping. So now the price is a little bigger, so don't be amazed that the people like Putin are handling their protesters with care in front of the cameras. And third, but for me most important, it makes learning process faster. I was a big fan of an American scholar called Gene Sharp, so I smuggled like 700 pages of his books into Serbia, and I read them all, and then I need to digest it for my fellow activists. Now, the book we started with, Nonviolent Struggle for Dummies, we call it. This is a very short manual. It has been downloaded 17,000 times in Iran only in June 2009, because it's 2 megabytes, it's very small, free. There are a lot of these resources running it different. So it makes learning process faster. So now every coin has two sides, of course, and dictators can learn these things. They can use internet to censor people. They can use, like, the first thing when they arrest you in Iran, they extract from you your passwords and your usernames. And what they are capable to do is that they can be virtual you. So they lure your friends and they arrest them. Very unlike the real world, where they can really put your skin and lure your friends. This is where your friends believe. So this is one of the big dangers. Second, we are witnessing this. We have this debate over and over, like around the different campaigns. We're witnessing the era of collectivism, meaning there is this lovely Facebook page. I go there, I click there, I save a polar bear. I didn't save a polar bear, really. So I mean, the real trouble is that this struggle is fought and won in a real world. So in order to get and win, you need to really do things in a real world. And we never want to mistake tools for substance. The substance is you have a vision, unity, movement, and then you have tools. South Africans, they didn't have the landlines, but they somehow sing the songs from village to village, and they found a way to convey their message on a very, very low-tech level, and they won.
Say a little bit more about your involvement, since it's been so recent, in Egypt and Tunisia. Who was the inviting organization, or was there a formal invitation? How did you come to go there in the first place?
Okay, first of all groups invite us. We never go after the conflict. They learn about us through the books and movies, and they contact us. Groups from Egypt and Tunisia, we're meeting various Egyptian and Tunisian activists in various seminars and conferences all around the globe. And especially Tunisians, they were very active at the very beginning. We were invited to work with Egyptians by the organization called April 6 and Kefaya. April 6 is a student movement, but they were already using the clenched fist when they come into contact with us. They were using the symbol of the Serbian resistance. In fact, we never went there. We brought them to Belgrade, which is because Egypt is very close to Belgrade and it's easy to travel. I mean, we wouldn't do this with the Burmese. It will cost us a lot of money to bring the Burmese to Belgrade. We perform 2 workshops, 15 days overall, for them and members of another group called Kefaya. So we were in touch with these 2 groups. We have a network of Egyptian friends now. It's very huge. We delivered the standard workshop on nonviolent struggle. This is what we basically do. And then they went underground. It's very interesting. Very unlike other groups, the Middle East groups, they don't follow up. They'll never send you what they do. They will never send you. And then there was the day of my shock. We met them July 2009, and they tested the ground. This is where we understand that they are taking this ground of small victories. February 2010, a year before the change really happened in Egypt, there was this huge photo on the cover page of the Serbian newspapers, and it was saying, "Fist shakes Egypt." So all of the people were out. This is this iconic Associated Press photo of a scarred woman carrying the big flag with a clenched fist in the streets of Cairo. So they were testing this thing, and they had a very distinguished strategy. They say, we will reach for the August 2011. Because this is what Mubarak will need to make the transition to his son Gamal. And this is going to be his weak point, because military hates Gamal, business community hates Gamal, and Egyptians feel like sheep to be left to the dictator's son. In fact, they were building their movement to come out in public and very strong in August 2011. The very fact they came earlier is because they were so jealous that the Tunisians have done it. And they are the smaller brother in this family. You know, Egyptians are having this idea of the big brother.
Can you talk about the role of humor and satire in the process?
Social scientists of the 19th century really thought that revolutionaries should be serious because they are involved with the serious business of revolution. And when you look at the Castro and Che Guevara, whatsoever, Yugoslav strongman Tito, they're like grim faces. And when you look at these new breeds of revolutionaries, they're all funny, playing drums, you know, it's like all of this different kind of stuff. And in fact, I must tell you, they are coming. So this is like the new era. There are particular 3 reasons why humor is such a powerful element in nonviolent struggle. First, it melts fear and builds enthusiasm, of course. Second, it makes your movement cool. You want your movement to be cool. People want to join the things which are cool. And I remember 1996, 1997, if you were not protesting on the street with you, nobody would date you. People would consider that you're a geek. You know, you're sitting home and learning, and the whole fun and the whole society is out in the street. Third, and very important, people in power, even the democratically elected politicians who spend too much time in the office, they tend to start believing this picture they see on TV and on the billboards and start thinking very seriously about themselves, which is the mistake movements must never do. I mean, look at this situation. You're a group of 15 activists. You bring a big petrol barrel in a central Belgrade downtown shopping district. There is a hole on it and there is a baseball bat. There's a president's face on the barrel. You put the coin in, you could hit the guy, boom. Clue of people, 200 people waiting for this. We are nearby having coffee, but that's not the most funniest part. The funniest part is when police arrives. So what they will do. This fantastic dilemma action is one example. To arrest shoppers, very stupid choice. What they will charge them for shopping and hitting the petrol barrel. To arrest us, we are nowhere to be seen. So at the end of the day, they arrested the barrel. So the picture of the police dragging barrel to the police car was the best shot on the cover page of the Serbian opposition newspapers. Look at the recent events in Russia. Yes, you can protest in St. Petersburg and Moscow because that's where the cameras are, but if you're living in Barnaul, Siberia, a very small place, very distant place, you can't really go on the street and protest. So people came to this genius idea to bring out their Lego toys. So they built a stage on the central square, and the toys were carrying the small transparents, searching for free and fair elections and, you know, claiming the election fraud. And you can see it on the video by great Russian artist Anna Yermolaeva. And, you know, everybody's taping. Even the police is there, and the police is having fun, and they're taping as well because it's, of course, toy protest. And then it goes viral on YouTube. And the next thing you know, the telephone of the police chief in Barnaul is ringing. Somebody in Moscow is really, really angry on what is happening. So you need to stop this. So tomorrow, when they apply for the toy protest, they give the written ban by Barnaul police, claiming that 100 Lego toys, 100 Kinder toys, and 50 toy cars cannot protest because they're made in China. They're not citizens of Russia. So next time, it will be either Russian toys or small toy passports. But I mean, what does it tell you about the government? Do they look serious and really powerful if they're afraid of the toy protest? So I mean, look at this situation. What will you do if you're the government? So it's a combination of humor and dilemma, and we even try, I often make jokes with my academia friend. We need to go to the very, very high, you know, some of these scientific magazines and define this new term called loftivism.
All right, thank you so much.
For more on this program and other Carnegie Ethics Studio productions, visit carnegiecouncil.org. There you can find video highlights, transcripts, audio recordings, and other multimedia resources on global ethics. This program is made possible by the Carnegie Ethics Studio and viewers like you.